Well, good morning. I will call our August meeting of Central Oklahoma Transportation and Parking Authority to order. I want to say one thing from the items from the chairman. I want to thank Russell Westbrook for his loyalty to Oklahoma City yesterday. I think it was great, and I know all of Oklahoma City appreciates that. We do have one presentation before we get into our agenda from Bob Hammock on behalf of the Oklahoma City Public Schools. So, Bob, if you'd repeat your name and your position.
Bob Hammock. I represent District 1, the Oklahoma City School Board. I'd be remiss if I also did introduce the chairman of the school board, Lynn Harden. Stand up, Lynn. She works tirelessly on behalf of our children. Before we get started, I did want to point out a couple of little things. I've actually had the pleasure, I have an advertising agency, and many years ago have done work for this organization back when it was called Mass Trans. And one of the things we did, we came up, as ad people are likely to do, with a great slogan. It said, avoid the fuss, ride the bus. That's about as simple as it gets. I'm sure journalism students are still studying that slogan all around the country. We do other things besides retail things. We also do a lot of work with nonprofits. And I want to take just one moment to mention that we had our own in-house broadcast studio, so we could do radio and TV for different nonprofits, 30 or 40 of them last time I counted. But we didn't have any print capability. And every time you do a major function for a nonprofit, there's always need for printing. There was one person in Oklahoma City that you could always count on to come through and help out a nonprofit in need of printing. And he's sitting right up here, and it's Barney Sempner. Barney, thank you for the many years of just unsullied service to nonprofits that you provided. So, okay, that being said, I'm here really pursuant to a meeting I had 3 years ago with Jim Couch. And I was a newly minted school board meeting, and not being an academian, you can't be it if you can't say it, I guess. I took a business approach to the board and still have. One of the things that I wanted to do was try to make the lives of our students better. And it struck me that transportation was a real problem. And I was looking at the dossier over one of my schools, John Marshall, and there was an interesting little phrase that said mobility rate. And I thought, what in the world is mobility rate? Well, it turns out that that's the rate of kids who enroll in September who will still be there in May. Almost every single school we have, particularly at the lower levels, it's over 50%. Now think about that. Many people in this room, I know, for example, Lynn and I, we grew up going to Cleveland, Taft, and Northwest Classen. I had my 50th reunion not long ago. I'd gone to school all 12 years with the same kids, same ugly faces. Well, that's not the way it is in today's world. It's not Leave It to Beaver anymore. These kids move around quite a bit. One of the issues that we have, certainly in East Oklahoma City, is because of poverty. That's really what I'm going to be talking about is poverty. It's hard to buy a home. Well, if you can't afford a home, what do? You live in an apartment. So if you're going to live in an apartment, what do? You find an apartment complex that will give you first month's rent free. And at the end of the 6 months, you move. So these kids move quite a bit. Fortunately, because of the digital age, we're able to track them. If they stay, it really helps in the same school, and often they do. But even if they change schools, we can keep track of them. But it really brings up some interesting questions about how they get around. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. Had lunch yesterday with a gentleman named Marshall Snipes. Many of you may know Marshall. He's a well-known businessman who is one of the heroes in Oklahoma City because he mentors. And he mentors at the grade school that he grew up at. And he was talking about a fifth grader that has been his project to work with, and last year. And he told a story about how one day he was talking with this young gentleman. He was a Latino kid, and he said, how's your family life? And he knew that there was only a mom in the family from previous conversations. And the kid said, well, it's kind of challenging right now. And he said, well, Marshall said, why is that? He said, well, they took my mom to prison. And so Marshall thought, well, how are you getting by? Who's taking care of you? And the kid said, oh, I'm taking care of myself. I'm in charge of my family now. Marshall said, your family? He said, well, I have a third grade brother and a first grade brother. So I want you to envision a home in Oklahoma City that's being run by a fifth grader. And don't think that that's an aberration. This is what poverty is all about in Oklahoma City. Marshall asked me an interesting question. He said, why the school board, Bob? I said, well, I'm an advocate for kids. And as Barney can attest, I do a lot of things with Rotary where we go around the world helping kids in Guatemala, Bulgaria, Romania. But we have problems right here in Oklahoma City, too. And they're pretty amazing when you drill down and take a look at what it's really like to be in poverty in Oklahoma City and in any urban school district. I told Marshall a story that was really a seminal moment in my life. Dudley Hyde used to do a program through the Foundation for Oklahoma City Public Schools where you could be principal of the day. I thought, God, that's great. A little younger man, I'm going to go do that. That'll be fun. So I did my grade school, in my junior high, and my high school. High school, Tammy Saunders was the principal, rather large, authoritarian lady who had brought order to those halls. It was very quiet. The classrooms were in order. We went down and had lunch, and Tammy said, Bob, I want you to look around the cafeteria and see if you notice something kind of interesting. I said, sure. So we sat there and we watched the kids go through the very same lunch lines that I'd gone through when I attended Northwest. And it became pretty evident quickly what she was referring to, and that is the kids would come in, they'd take their lunch, and these are free lunches because 90% of our kids are below the poverty level. I think we've waived that. We give free breakfast and lunch to anybody. And they would take their lunch, and they would cut it in half. And they'd take a napkin and put half of it in the napkin and put it in their jacket or their purse to take home with them. And the reason being is they weren't going to have dinner if they didn't have that in their pocket. So whatever you think poverty looks like in Oklahoma City, it's almost impossible for the people in this room to really identify with the issue that these families face. It is unbelievable. I had the pleasure of mentoring a kid at one of my two high schools. And he's very talented. He wasn't a rap performer, but he was a rap songwriter. And because I'm a creative director, the principal thought I would be a good mentor. So we went to Russell Perry's radio stations, and he got to play music and do the things that I thought would really catapult him into a career in music. And one day I said, tell me about your family. He said, well, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters that are from one mom, and then I've got 5 other brothers and sisters who are from the second mom and 2 girlfriends. Well, where's your dad? He's in prison. Why is he in prison? Selling drugs. I have a high school, not high school, but a middle school, Greystone Middle. We did the research, and 90% of the dads that we can identify as being the dads are currently incarcerated or they've been in prison. So these kids grew up in a family unit where they know more felons than they do college graduates. And that really is the rub. It's generational poverty. It repeats itself over and over and over. So these kids really face challenges that I can assure you none of us in this group had to face when we were growing up. The surprising thing is how many succeed. I mean, poverty's like quicksand. It's hard to get out, but some do. And I think if they had access to getting around Oklahoma City and some of the mobility things that we're going to talk about today, it would only help their lives. What's interesting is that we are not the only urban school district to face this problem. I think ours is acutely exacerbated by the fact that we're so large. But other school districts have worked with their transportation people to come up to solve the same problem. Of course, recently Tulsa did it. Memphis has also done it. Several places in Florida come to mind. And it's important to, I passed out, you're going to receive some research that we did with a group of cross-section of students. And what it's going to show you is that something like 50% of the Oklahoma City school kids are aware of the bus system. But 75% of their families don't use the bus system. That's a great opportunity for you down the road, guys. It's a great opportunity for you. So I think if we can come up with a program that allows our seniors, and I'd like to take a moment. Where's Jason? These are my reading glasses. I can't see about my hand. Jason and I met a few weeks ago, and I've also met with Steve Hill. We had a very robust conversation. Don't ever stand between the basket and Steve Hill when he's got the ball in his hand. He's a tough competitor. But we've kind of worked through some of the issues, and I know that they include money. Of course, you're facing the same economic restraints as our school district. But I'm going to tell you guys, these kids don't have $10 a month. If you think they do, come with me and I'll take you to some homes and you can see what poverty really looks like. These kids don't have $10 a month. And it's acutely bad because they come from large families. Poverty really loves large families, it seems. So even though I met a lady at Taft Junior High who her daughter was being disciplined because she was cut in class, this lady had come from Mexico where she was one of 10 kids. Interesting enough, the 9 kids that preceded her were all boys. I bet she had a rough life growing up. And she was working 3 jobs here in America to support her kids, to get them through school, and here her daughter was cut in class. But the point of my story is she worked 3 jobs. She had a house full of kids. How do those kids get around? If they're sick, how do they go to the doctor? They want to go to the mall and meet their friends and hang out. How do they do that? I mean, you have to have an ability to get around a city. And these kids don't ride the bus because many of them can't afford it, even at affordable prices that you offer. So I'll be back on September the 5th, I believe it is. At your next meeting, we'll make a very specific proposal. By the way, one of the concerns that I've learned was that this would overtax your system. Well, Jason and I, we had a great lunch and worked out a lot of the issues. We're going to limit this initially to seniors only. There are approximately 3,500 seniors in all 9 high schools. Not all 3,500 kids are going to show up at the bus stop in the morning. I'll be surprised if it's 15 or 20%. I don't know that. We're going to go to Tulsa and see what their experience has been. We'll have a much better idea as to how many riders we're really talking about. But and that would be as a result of having your staff and our staff in the next few weeks get together and work out those kind of details. I'm going to close by simply saying I had the great pleasure of serving as chairman of the Zoo Trust for 2.5 years. Longest serving chairman, and it still survived. That's a shock to me under my leadership. One of the things that we opened was Oklahoma Trails, about a $9 million exhibit. And I laid awake a lot of nights wondering, and I'm sure Jim Couch did too, is this exhibit going to pay for itself? Do Oklahoma kids really want to see raccoons? Yeah, they do, and mountain lions and buffalo. And it's become a very successful exhibit. And if you haven't been out to the zoo, you should go. It's a fabulous place. Oklahoma Trails turned out to be a tremendous exhibit. My point is, that's a legacy. And I can go to my grave knowing that I did something significant, that it's going to be a great attraction and a great benefit to the kids of Oklahoma City, and that's primarily who goes to the zoo. You have the same opportunity. Let's do something great. Don't let a few measly dollars stand in the way. Let's do what other school districts have done. Let's make ridership free. We'll help promote it. And this will be a great legacy for this trust to leave. So I will be back at your next meeting. We'll have a very specific proposal. I'm sure I'll work with Jason before that point, so you'll have something to vote on that has actual meat to it. I sincerely appreciate your time.
All right, Bob, thank you. Do we have any citizens to be heard? Okay, step up. State your name and...
Hi, Mark Gibbs, 601 North Broadway. I'm a member of the MAPS 3 Transit Subcommittee and been working on developing the streetcar as a tractable part of the fixed guideway study for over 8 years now. So that's a lot of advocacy work, and for nearly 6 of those years I've been serving on that committee. For better or for worse, construction of the streetcar is being handled by the MAPS office. Operations will obviously be handled by Cotpa, so we have a split there. And one of the things that we've been repeatedly concerned about on the committee is making sure that operations and construction are effectively integrated. And that's extremely important to make sure, particularly for cost savings in terms of maintenance, in terms of logistics, all sorts of other issues, that is taken into account during the time of construction that comes under the MAPS office. So I was particularly pleased when I saw that David Todd kind of essentially grumbled that Jason has been camping out in his office. And I think that's really important. Really pleased to hear that. And it's extremely important that communication go on. We continue to be concerned on the committee about making sure, particularly as the construction is moving ahead, that any costs or equipment that may be useful to maximise revenue opportunities. We've just been hearing about revenue and funding. So in particular, one of those particular issues is the equipment that will be installed at the streetcar stops, and any opportunities for digital signage and advertising, any opportunities to reduce or improve the revenue that we're taking in to support the streetcar is extremely important. So we continue to be concerned, and we're pleased to hear that that's moving ahead. You're about to hear about the branding for the streetcar. That's extremely exciting. That's a real important point. And at the meeting last week, I suggested that branding material start being used along the route, particularly as the construction proceeds. We will encounter, for better or for worse, grumbling, resistance, whatever, as the streetcar construction proceeds. We've also repeatedly emphasised the importance of reaching out to businesses and owners along the route to make sure that their disruption is minimised. Now, I've talked to a lot of cities around the country and abroad about how best to do that. And there are a lot of best practices, and there's a person at ADG who's doing fantastic work in that respect. But it was also pointed out to me that the MAPS brand will be used for that kind of things. Again, it's the separation. MAPS is a strong brand. MAPS has an excellent track record in construction, as Jim should know himself. But it was also pointed out on the committee that maybe that's a good thing. Maybe if there are trouble with construction, maybe Cotpa doesn't necessarily want to be associated with that. But regardless, we are going to face some tough issues coming up. MAPS has done very, very well, but this is the first time MAPS has built a transit system. In fact, it's not a system, it is the integration of multiple systems. There is a lot of work to go ahead, and there is a very tight time frame coming up in terms of construction. For better or for worse, the margin has already slipped. We could write a book on all the stories we've had to go through about figuring out where the route should go, the selection of the vehicles. That time has been used up. There is a very tight time frame coming up if we are to see service at the end of 2018. Quite frankly, personally, I will be very sceptical if that can be achieved. I will be very impressed. There's a lot of work going on, I know that, but it may well slip. And if that does, that's okay with us. We want this done right. And so if there's slippage and it takes a few more months to make sure things are done correctly, I would prefer to see that. We are very gratefully glad to see assured, whatever the term may be, for the technical advice and support that both the MAPS-free staff and Cotpa are getting from their consultants. That has greatly helped, particularly as we have certain constraints, such as the way the design bid build process has to take place in this state. So hopefully things will go well. The last thing I really want to point out, at the end of the day, we in the transit advocacy community want to see a successful system. So right now we have to focus on construction. Operations is going to loom more and more important. And beyond that, it will be an effective system with a good regular service. And regular service means short headways. Short headways means funding issues. There are some tough issues to come up about funding, and in particular for service on certain times of day, certain parts of the week. We're aware of that. We're also most concerned that the funding as a whole for the whole system, not just for the streetcar, be approached in an effective manner. And we look forward to working with you on the Cotpa board and with the City Council to make sure that transit is funded effectively going forward. Thank you for your time.
Well, let me assure you that Cotpa staff and the city, we want it to be a success. There's no doubt about that, and we're all working toward that. So thank you for your comments. Next, do I hear a motion to approve our board meeting, our meeting of July 1st?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? And then we had a marketing and parking committee meeting on July 26th. Any changes in those in minutes, or is there approval for that?
Move approval. Second.
All in favor? Oh, all right. We've got 8 items on the consent docket. Are there any of the items that any of the trustees would like individual discussion on? They're all pretty self-explanatory, and if not, then I would hear a motion to approve our consent docket.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We've got a fairly lengthy items for individual consideration, and I've asked Jason if we can kind of combine any 2 or 3 at a time so we don't just have a lengthy discussion on every one of the items. And then Corey's going to speak to some of the parking issues and ask him to do the same thing so we don't just get bogged down in individual discussion on these many items. So, Jason, if you'd like to start off.
Sure. Item 6A is amendment number 1 and change order number 1 to our contract with Jim Cooley Construction for maintenance facility enhancements at the 2000 South May location. This contract was awarded originally on March 4th. As you'll recall, we're doing some enhancements to the break room and restroom area for our employees that work in the service lane. We're constructing a paint booth. We're installing a sprinkler system. And that project has been underway all summer. What you have here is an amendment for additional aggregate and concrete cuts for about $1,480. Also part of this item is change order number 1. This is going to be our first change order for the project of $18,952, or 3.09% of the original contract. Basically, what this change order is associated with is primarily a relocation of a sewer line in order to construct that additional space for the restroom and break area. With that, the new contract amount will be $632,827.
Any questions? Not, do I hear a motion to approve item A?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Item B is approval of the contract with V-Ride for van pool services.
Yeah, this item here is with action by the trust will actually increase the amount of services that we offer under our transit family of services. Van pool is a new form of public transportation that we'll be introducing on a pilot program basis. As you'll recall, on May 6th, the board approved the issuance of an RFP. We advertised for that RFP in May, received 2 proposals, and the selection committee determined that V-Ride had the best proposal. V-Ride is a van pool provider that provides these same services across the nation. I would say they're the industry leader, if not one of the industry leaders in this particular market. A couple of benefits to us as a transit agency and to our customers by adding this service is obviously this type of transit service could potentially appeal to users of transit that aren't located close to an existing transit route. It also helps us as a transit agency in that all of the miles accumulated in this van pool program do contribute to the bottom line of our formula funding after the program's been established. So with approval today, we'll have a 5-year contract with V-Ride. Estimated cost over the 5 years is $253,600.
All right.
Move the item.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Item C is approval of Guaranteed Ride Home program.
Yeah, the Guaranteed Ride Home program is a program that we've had in place for many years, and it's kind of one of our best kept secrets, I think. Not necessarily that we're trying to keep it secret, but we do not have a lot of people that have signed up for it. But essentially what it does is on the Guaranteed Ride Home program, if you are a transit user, you're a customer of our fixed route bus system, you commit to using bus service to commute at least 3 times a week. What we will do is we will provide 4 times a year $40 taxi vouchers in the event that a customer had to leave for an emergency situation, get home immediately, and was unable to use the fixed route bus service. So this program has been in place again for many years. The action will actually formalize the program and then expand the program so that it can be used with the van pool services.
All right. Do you hear a motion to approve item C?
Approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item D is approval of contract for engine and transmission repair parts and supplies and adopt open market authority resolution for items not bid not to exceed $150,000. And I think maybe item E can tie into this, Jason, which is an adoption of a resolution approving Cotpa and parking procurement policy. So sure. Maybe you can just talk about both of those and how they tie together.
Okay, yeah, the first item here is pretty standard in that obviously to keep our fleet in good condition, we have to have various agreements in place for parts and supplies. Routinely, we go out and solicit bids in order to obtain new contracts for purchasing. In this case, as for engine and transmission repair parts, we ended up getting bids from 4 different vendors. You can see them listed in the item. And essentially what this allows us to do by entering into contracts with the 4 different vendors, it gives us maximum flexibility in terms of pricing and parts availability. With the approval of this item, that'll put those 4 contracts in place, which allow us to be able to buy parts from those 4 different vendors. The open market resolution of $150,000 annually essentially allows for us to be able to purchase parts from those vendors that maybe weren't included in the original bid. We can't obviously anticipate every single part we may need and ask for a price, so we have that open market authority. And then that ties into our update in our procurement policy in that Obviously, with this type of procurement or any procurement, whether it's an RFP or a best value bid, we have certain policies and procedures that we follow. And from time to time, we look at our policies, make sure they're updated. And recently, we looked at our procurement policy. The last time it was updated was in 2003. And so there was just some housekeeping things that we wanted to bring to the trust in order to make sure they're as current as they possibly can be. So if you look at the procurement policy, it's essentially contained on 2 pages in the attachment to your memo. And if you look under the section titled General, there's about 11 bullet points. And in summary, what this procurement policy does essentially says that as a trust, we're going to comply with the state statutes regarding purchasing. We're going to comply with the Oklahoma Competitive Bidding Act. We're going to comply with the city's purchasing policies. And then in those instances where federal funds are involved, we will also comply, of course, with FTA guidance and rules. And that was one of the regulations that we updated. You'll notice the bullet there that says we'll comply with FTA Circular 4221.F. That's the latest revision to those rules and regulations. So really just, again, kind of a housekeeping item to make sure that we have our policies updated based on what's included in the latest regulations.
All right. Any questions? Then do I hear a motion to approve item D? All in favor? Opposed? And then item E, motion to approve it?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right. Item F is approval of architectural services with Frankfurt Short Bruza, and I think we've got a presentation here on this item.
Yes. So on this item here, this is an item actually entering into an agreement, being assigned to an existing agreement actually for architectural services with Frankfurt Short and Bruza. This approach to contracting A&E services is a little bit different than the one that we typically use. We would normally do our own RFP, select an architect and an engineer for such a project. However, as you'll recall, FSB was assisting, and they have assisted, the Water Utilities Trust in some of the improvements they've done to the first floor of the Sheridan Walker Garage in terms of revamping or rehabilitating that office space, even some exterior improvements where the solid glass panes were replaced to make the exterior of the building look better. And so part of that work entailed FSB putting together like a preliminary project scope for some additional exterior enhancements to the garage. And we've shared those enhancements with the parking committee. We've included a project budget in our 5-year capital plan for those enhancements. And so the action today would actually assign Cotpa to that existing contract between Aquit and FSB. And we really believe is the most efficient approach in continuing on with the project. And so, yes, we have a representative from FSB here today to give a quick presentation.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me and allowing me to present to you all. My name is Jerry Crone. I'm a design architect with Frankfurt Short Bruza here in Oklahoma City. It seems that every time that my wife and I and the boys come downtown, there's something new that is built, a new restaurant, a new bar, something along the lines that we see each time we come. This parking garage happens to be almost in the center of all of that development. There's a very exciting building going on across the street, a beautiful parking garage built within 50 yards of this. With that in mind, now that we have finished the interior renovation, partial exterior of this garage, it occurred to some of the leadership that we were working with that it might be a good idea to look at upgrading or changing some of the exterior features to make it fit into the area that it's going to be in. So that is what this is. Everyone recognizes the garage. Someone, many years ago, decided that it would be a good idea, and I completely understand as an architect, to make large, black obelisks on the edges of the parking garage. It anchors the architecture, it ends the horizontal lines, and it really is a very attractive garage, actually, from when it was built. The changes that we're talking about are very simple. We have added, and what we talked about just a second ago, we changed all the glass. We added some pilasters, some vertical elements along the edge. And I believe right now, I think we're ordering furniture that's going to be a part of that addition. All right. If you look at that view right there, you're going to notice at the bottom of the black towers, it's precast concrete. And over the years, as water has run down that black glass, it has begun to stain that precast concrete. So that was where our conversations began. If you look at that view, we're proposing to cut holes in the existing precast to bring light into those lobbies and put in new storefront in those areas. We believe that if we add canopies for partial rain protection, and very similar to the parking garage right across the street from here, if we add canopies at the corners of the bases of the obelisk, and there'll be 3 of them, 2 on this corner, 1 down by the alley, those canopies probably cost about $116,000. We're also going to change out the soffits and the lighting and all of the paving, what's existing concrete. We'll change out the paving around those areas to spruce that up a bit at the corners. That could be $78,000. There's another view of the other one. But the exciting part is, as you know, we are proposing to put a fritted colored glass on the vertical black towers on the edges. I think that some of you have samples. I'll get into some other photos here in just a second. But the idea here is that we all know what's happening across the street. It's very colorful, it's very vibrant. And in this particular case, we have 2 things that could be showcased by this colored glass. One is the movement of the elevator. We're proposing to open that up, and as you can see with your samples, it's clear glass. So you'll be able to see through it. And as the elevator moves up and down, you can see that movement on the facade. In addition, there'll also be colored glass where you'll be able to see the patrons going through the lobbies. So it'll be a dynamic change for sure. But to get that to work, we propose putting LED lighting behind this glass to light it up at night. Oh, pardon me. We think that that's going to be about $559,000 to get that done. There's another view at night. As you can imagine, the possibilities, design-wise, it does not have to look like that at all. All we were trying to do is show the possibilities of what could be a very dynamic change to that corner. There's a night view. If you have been to Will Rogers World Airport in the last 6 months, they've built a new consolidated rental car facility. In that facility, there was a project that was added to this end that uses the colored glass similar to the samples that you have. That glass can come in any Pantone color that you could imagine. So the possibilities for you are endless. There's another view. And up close. Item 5 is inside the lobbies and the elevator towers. We're hoping to renovate with new lighting and new finishes all of the lobbies of both ends of the black towers. We believe that that change will be $485,000. In addition, the 3 stairwells that are adjacent to the elevator towers need some upgrading. There are doors that are broken. There are pieces and parts around those stair shafts that just need to be fixed. And to brighten it up with changing the lighting also and painting some of the walls. We believe that's going to be around $187,000. But the most important thing to the users, I would think, is that we're going to change out from the existing lighting, and I'll show you a photo here in just a second, to new LED fixtures. We're going to change them out in place, no new conduit runs, so where a fixture exists now, we're going to put a new LED fixture in its place. And it should be a fairly dynamic change. There's photographs of different parking garages that utilize that same method. And this item I wanted to throw in just to show you the difference. We all know the difference between LED lighting and the sodium type, and it's very dramatic. With that being said, here's a total of all of those items together. And what I would like for you to see is that in each of those line items, all the way at the bottom of the slide, we have added 22% for overhead for a contractor, 6.8% or 0.68% for escalation between now and for whenever we get this finished, and a 10%, and what I can tell you with confidence is bigger than 10%, but I wanted to publish 10%, a design contingency, to make up for the things that we find in the future. So with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
All right. Any questions from any of the trustees? Something needs to be done, so this is certainly going to improve the garage in this part of Oklahoma City. So,
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes. The guys at Knox Class in Oklahoma City threatened me. If I don't bring those samples back, I'm going to have to pay.
Okay.
It'll be emotional payment.
Oh. All in favor, say aye. Aye. But if you want to see a real dramatic glass, if you've been to Pops in Nichols Hills Plaza, the blue doors going in there it's pretty dramatic when you see the colors. So there's another one. All right. We've got, I think, 4 items that really apply to our parking system, and I guess Corey's going to, if you would, Corey, just speak briefly to any of the small items, and then if the trustees want to talk about at length, then we can. So item G is approval of purchase of ZipPack software and accessories for ski data through Weatherby Electric.
Good morning, everybody. The overall cost for this would be $43,553. We would be buying most of that money would go towards software upgrades to make the devices payment card industry compliant. Once we upgrade those devices, we'll have the ability to collect credit card payment. We will be able to process event parking transactions at all garages with credit cards, allowing customers to pay with credit cards. We'll have the ability to scan the UPC barcodes that are printed on tickets. Once that's available, another benefit would be automated reporting. And then a very significant benefit would be the ability for us to further reduce our lost tickets. For smaller events, staff, when they process a transaction with the customer, they'll provide the customer with a ticket to be used, to be inserted by the customer at the exit gate to open up the gate. Again, that would be on small attendee events and hopefully work our way towards larger events in the future should that prove to be successful. Overall cost, again, is $43,550.
Well, that solved one of my biggest concerns through the years, the ticket taking at Thunder games, the method we use. Can you scan your Thunder ticket to park? Or are they still going to continue to do the same method?
I'll be speaking with the Thunder next week. I've already spoken to them in advance and told them of the possibility. And as long as Cotpa can control what UPCs are printed onto those tickets with this $43,000, yes.
Great. All right. All right. Any questions on item G? Then do I hear a motion to approve? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item H is approval of a contract with Change Management Advisors for parking consultant services.
Yes, as you're aware, we released an RFP earlier this year. We had 3 companies respond: Chance Management Advisors, Walker Parking Consultants, and BKD. Each of those individual groups, their submittals were reviewed by the committee. We asked for references for the top 2 selections, and Chance Management was recommended by the committee for a total cost of $110,257.
And what are they going to be looking at? I mean, what is the...
Thank you for asking. They will be providing an operational audit, financial revenue audit, looking back at the most recent 6 months on those items. They will look at what we are currently paying in management fees and incentive fees to Republic Parking to compare that to other contracts across the nation. and they will be assisting us with requests for proposal documents for future solicitations for a parking operator, along with a contract for that arrangement.
Okay. Good. Any questions? Then do I hear a motion to approve item H? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Item I is RFP for architectural and engineering services for the Santa Fe parking garage tenant space.
In that, we want to rehab approximately 8,300 square feet of vacant space. We'll be going in and demoing that area and bringing it back to white box conditions. We will be rehabbing the 4 staircases, the stair treads on each of the doors, updating the west elevator tower. When I say updating the elevator tower, we will not be working on any elevators. We'll just be working on floors and lighting and walls to clean up those areas. In addition, we will be taking a look at the roof that leads to the elevator equipment room above the garage. That needs a little bit of work, along with looking at some drainage issues that we've experienced over the past couple of years.
Will this include the, the open area between all the retail space, in the center of the garage? I haven't looked at that in a long time, but
the drainage, yes.
no, but the what?
Wasn't it Ford Park, isn't that what they called it?
Well, and there was memorabilia from some of the buildings in Oklahoma City stored there or something. And I don't know if that's a very useful space, and I haven't seen it in a while, so.
It's been cleaned up.
Is it?
We're talking about the open area between.
Yes.
The future tenant has expressed interest in utilizing some of that area for activities.
We have made some previous improvements as far as reconstructing some of the planters and redoing some of the paving, and so it's received some work over the last couple of years.
Good. All right. Any questions? Then have a motion to approve item I.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right. Item J is the approval of final acceptance on the tenant build-out in the Arts District garage and place the maintenance bond into effect.
Glad to report that all 3 tenants have moved into the spaces and are situating themselves in their new offices. All have expressed appreciation and enjoyment of their new facilities. Overall, the project required 4 change orders, which added a total cost of $28,278, which is 3.86%, and 28 days were added to the project. Cotpa will be reimbursed for just under $20,000 of the $28,000 that we went over a previous budget from 2 tenants as they requested modifications to their suites. Of the 28 days that the project was extended, 21 of those days were attributed to the tenants' modifications. Overall, after reimbursement, the budget will be over 1.14% in 7 days.
So the space is all full now.
And done.
And
punch list included.
Right.
It's a closed item.
All right. Do I hear a motion to approve item J?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. All right, Corey, thank you. Item K is approval of brand strategy and visual identity for the modern streetcar. I guess Michael's going to show us some slides here. Good.
Well, as most projects, they all begin with, to be successful, need a significant amount of collaboration, and we had just that with this project, or this part of the project. We had interviewed many downtown stakeholders and influencers and policymakers downtown who affect the development and who also are aware of the different activities that are going on. We also held focus groups with various industry stakeholders as well as everyday citizens. And we conducted surveys through emails with a variety of boards and different entities to ensure that we incorporated all of their comments and their suggestions, their perceptions, and then are also just their concerns regarding the launch of the streetcar. What we ended up with was clear direction and clear goals. One was that they wanted a forward-thinking brand that was able to reach a broad audience, including policymakers, politicians, developers, current riders especially, and even non-riders. They wanted, as we developed the communications for the brand, they wanted us to have a clear and concise message. And we wanted to translate that also into the brand icons itself by providing a clean and consistent look and feel. So the directives came about that basically told us that we needed a modern brand with that was able to express a confident and uniqueness with a boldness to parallel what is going on in the city itself, as well as to maintain a connection to travel, which would be with Embark and with transportation around the city. And that it also gave a nod to the urban and angular, and most important that we heard overwhelmingly was it needed to be approachable. It needed to be something that everyone would be comfortable with approaching, and that it was forward-looking to the future. So the overall mark, which we call a logo, a lot of times is just the icon. It was inspired by the shape of the streetcar as well as the Embark logo as well, and it incorporated those to maintain that connection, provide us a modern look and feel, and to make it approachable because it is a familiar brand already. Here you have 3 different versions of the mark. It allows you to see it with Oklahoma City spelled out and with a more concise version of OKC, and in 3 different color palettes. Those were something that were also very influenced by the feedback that we received, in that we wanted bold and unique. And this is something, again, that we heard from the stakeholders and the focus groups, and also the surveys that we had heard from. Here is an artistic rendering of that in the redbud color. It's a progression of reds and pinks. And here are all 3 vehicles. What we expect to see here is 2 vehicles each in each color. So that'll give you a total of 6 that are currently under contract for purchase and build by Brookville. And then our next steps are to look at the overall brand development. And these are just examples. They haven't been published or actually put into production. But they are just ways to show how we can use the brand to promote and build brand awareness for the upcoming streetcar. Like the streetcar subcommittee and others, we are very interested in building that brand awareness early to help establish an effective communication with one another that's two-way, and so that way we can effectively communicate construction. But also what's important to us is maintaining and setting expectations that can be managed realistically. And one way to do that is by building this brand early and building credibility with it through honest and clear, concise messaging. And here's one more option on that. This was, again, something that we brought to the marketing committee, and I believe they did recommend it for approval here, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
I like it. I think it's really clean. I think it's bold. I think it's serve us well.
Oh, it's very colorful. It'd be, we can see them coming, which the drivers need to know that.
That's true. That's very true.
All right. Any other questions? All right.
I just want to commend the work that you all have done. I'm so excited about this. And everything that the city manager and the chairman just said is exactly right. And I love the color choices. I've already spoke about this, of course, so anyone who was at the marketing committee meeting heard this. But I'm excited. I think those colors blend naturally into our city. The green kind of brings this sort of the nature of the myriad gardens and the park that MAPS 3 voters also approved. I just think it all works together, and I'm so excited to be able to see people moving around our city with public transportation. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve item K? All in favor? Thank you, Michael. Approval of rate change for the Spokies Bike Share Program.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to speak to both items L and
Okay.
M. Item M assigns Cotpa a broader administrative responsibilities for the bike share program. This will allow us to retain the revenues to help support the system and allow us to set the rates. So in speaking about the rates, how those came about, let's look at a typical user. In the system that was used up until last month, a daily pass was $5. You swiped your credit card. And then if you didn't return the bike within 30 minutes, you were charged $2 for every 30 minutes. The typical rider wound up spending about $7 because of a lunch hour, 45 minutes, it would cost about $7. Under the new system, it's a flat $3.50 per 30 minutes. So for this person who uses it to go to lunch or go to a meeting, the typical charge is still going to be $7. So you might ask, why are we changing it? Well, there's a tremendous amount of confusion about the daily pass. We even had a few riders check the bike out for $5, take it home overnight, and then bring it back the next day and couldn't figure out why they were charged $75. And over trying to explain this to users is just not an efficient way to run the system. The bike share pricing is one of the leading topics in bike share conferences. How to make this work, how to make it understandable, how to make it so that users know what they're getting. So we're moving to the flat $3.50 per 30 minutes to help alleviate that issue. Now, monthly memberships prior were $20 a month. Annual memberships were $75 per month with unlimited 30-minute rides. I can count on both hands how many we've had in the past 4 years. It's just not a program that's working, and we really need to encourage people to become regular users of the system. So under the new system, it's no longer a membership. Now it's a pass, similar to a bus pass. So you have a monthly pass is $9.95 a month, and you get unlimited 60-minute rides. And this is a recurring charge, so it continues to charge you every month until you call us and say, okay, I don't need this anymore. And this will help people that only use it maybe 6 months out of the year or 7 months out of the year, whatever their usage pattern is. They won't have to continually buy up monthly memberships. There's also the annual pass, which is $70. And how we arrived at the $70, we looked at over 50 systems in the United States, and then we zeroed in on the ones that are near our region. And this is what is being charged at the systems that are nearest to us. So we settled on these $70, and one of the reasons for that has to do with what a program that we'll become part of, which is called Be Connected. Be Connected is a B-cycle program where if you have an annual membership here in Oklahoma City, you can use that annual membership in these 28 cities. And this list is growing as B-Cycle expands their system. They're moving to Los Angeles, Las Vegas, various parts around the country. Every time they add a system that becomes Be Connected, your Oklahoma City annual pass will be good in those cities. So that's how we came to that. This is the overall proposed pricing. And just to highlight a couple of things, the Flex Pass, this is something we're hoping to introduce somewhere down the road as a possible integration with our other transportation options. Perhaps we can combine it with the bus or ferry, some of the other streetcar perhaps, some of the other things that we have. So one pass gets you all around the city in various modes of transportation. Failure to return rate has been raised to $100. I believe previously it was $500. These bikes cost $961, so obviously we weren't covering the cost of the bike and the shipping of the bike. So that we've raised that to cover that. Special promotion pricing has remained the same. This is for corporate memberships. Maybe some of the hotels would want to buy a packet. However, we decide to promote that and sell that. Now, what do we do with the old Worksman bikes? Those are becoming our special event bikes. so that if you want to do an architectural tour or an Oklahoma City history tour or maybe just a team building exercise, you could rent the blue bikes, the Spokies bikes, the Worksons bikes for $10 per bike for your event. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Hear a motion to approve item L?
So moved.
All in favor? Opposed? Then are you going to speak to item M, or?
Item M is the joint resolution giving Cotpa the broader opportunities for the bike share system.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve item M?
So, second.
All in favor? Opposed? All right. Thank you. All right. Our next item is ratification of claims and payrolls for June 28th through July 26th. Any items on there the trustees have a question about? If not, I would hear a motion to ratify. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Our financial reports, and I think Jason has just a couple items on the budget to actual he'd like to mention.
Yeah, just a couple of things, just as a general comment. This is our budget to actual through June 30th, so it's a snapshot of where we finished the year. With that said, our financial staff, as well as the city's accounting department, are still closing out the fiscal year. So these numbers are going to change slightly when we receive our final financial report. So, but based on the snapshot that you have in front of you, and again, we don't expect a lot of substantial changes, I'll start with page 2, looking at our transportation operations enterprise. And just quickly, there's a couple of revenue items I wanted to point out. You'll notice on the total operating revenue, the column to the far right, the variance there is negative $2.3 million. So through June 30th, we received $2.3 million less than what we had projected. $1 million of that variance, of course, is our decision not to draw on the full amount of the general fund support that was budgeted in order to support transit, and we were able to do that because of savings primarily in fuel. The other item I wanted to mention is you'll notice about a $1.3 million variance in federal grants. We have sought reimbursement for all of our eligible expenses for FY16. We have another reimbursement request in process, and so as that revenue is booked back to FY16, we expect about another $468,000 in revenue in that category. So overall, we'll finish about $800,000 under, which simply means our expenses that we get reimbursed for were less than what we'd anticipated, and we'll end up spending that federal money in the next fiscal year. Operating expenditures, similar comments to what I've had in the past, in that most of our savings is derived from personal services and our fuel categories. Net operating income, so that's revenues over expenses, we finished around $1.4 million for the year. So still finished in a very good position in the transit operations. On the parking operations, again, just a couple of high-level comments. Our total operating revenues through June 30th finished $358,000 more than what was projected, so that's a positive variance. Operating expenditures, you can look and notice most of those categories are under budget. The first line there, the parking garage operations, that includes 11 payments to Republic. We have one more invoice that is not reflected in those totals, so we'll actually end up being at about 100% of that budget, again, when our final report is prepared. But looking at operating income, revenues over expenditures for the year, you can see revenues exceeded expenditures by just over $2 million. So again, finished strong on the parking enterprise. Looking at the river cruises operation, I won't speak to each of the revenues, but you can see a general trend of where we finished under budget in terms of our revenues. We were pretty aggressive in FY16 on some of those budgeted revenue amounts. We've trimmed those back for FY17. But what I did want to mention is with Jeannie and Joe from HMS working together, they aggressively managed that expenditure budget. So you'll notice that even with that shortfall in revenues, when we compare to budget, our revenues still ended up exceeding our expenditures by about $17,000. So it was good that we, no budget amendment was required this year for the river operations, and revenues did outpace expenditures. So we finished in a positive position there. And then on Spokie's general comment is that basically our revenues exceeded expenditures by just under $14,000 in 2016. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions on the financials.
Hearing no questions, then I would have a motion to approve our financial report. Second. All in favor? Our program reports, our transit system report. You've been left out so far, so you're on stage now. So.
Thank you so much, and I enjoy it. Mr. Chairman, trustees, good morning. Thanks for having us. I'd like to touch on 4 topics of the June 2016 transit report: safety, ridership, on-time performance, and how we measured up to our fiscal year-end report card. Plus, I'd like to provide a brief modern streetcar update. We experienced 5 non-preventable accidents during the month of June, and we were responsible for 4 preventable accidents during that month. 3 of those 4 were what we're going to refer to in the future as $0 preventable accidents, which is a significant portion of what we've been classifying as preventable accidents. The last accident, one of the 4, cost approximately $413. Now, this $0 preventable accident category represents 41 of the 66 accidents that we declared to be preventable during this last fiscal year, which is over 60%. Now, the importance is that in our reporting, it's a whole lot more accurate if we take the zero impact accidents out of our accidents per mile. For instance, in the preventable accident category for the last fiscal year, we experienced 32,000 miles between preventable accidents. That number climbs, 54,000. That number climbs to 88,000 when we take the accidents out that cause no harm. We're still going to learn from these preventable accidents, these $0 ones. The lesson will be there, but the reporting will be a whole lot more accurate with their excluding those from the reporting. As far as our total miles between accidents, eliminating those 41 accidents will result in our miles between all accidents going from 32,000 to 47,000, which is significant, and it's a good measure of what we're doing in our safety department. If you'll take a look at our ridership slide, you'll see that our ridership was under where it was in June of 2015 by 6.4%. This is the second time in 26 months that we've been under, and contributing factors are that June 2015 was a real healthy month in providing passenger trips. It was 13% over the previous year's June, which is 44% above our average monthly growth. Additionally, in June 2015, we provided passenger trips to over 12,000 people, or 12,000 passenger trips on 4 occasions, or in 5 occasions, and on 2 other occasions we eclipsed 13,000 trips per day. This past June, for instance, only one time did we barely get over 12,000. There are some factors in that. There is a correlation for sure, and we're not exactly, we can't really quantify it, but there is some correlation between the reduced economic activity and the number of people on our buses. Our link, the other quick thing I was going to say is that our link service declined its usual 25% year over year. Our new night service, I'm pleased to report, increased from 341 passengers per night to 365, which is a 7% increase. And in keeping with our trends, the mature routes, which are the 11 and 23, grew by 4.5%, and the 5 and 13, which have been in business for 6 months, grew by 10.5%, which is fantastic in terms of both growing and providing this wonderful service to our citizens that need it. our on-time performance. Our on-time performance was dropped by less than 1% from the previous June, but it was up 2.6% from the previous month. And on this past month, we instituted a firm bus stop policy that will assist us in that, amongst other things, in terms of being able to more efficiently serve our customers. Okay, if we go to our report card, our number of passengers per service hour, we achieved 94% in the end of our fiscal year. Number of passengers per operating day, we were in excess of 99%. Our on-time bus arrivals, we achieved 89%. Number of miles between road calls, 136%. Number of vehicle accidents per 100,000 miles, we're at 168%, which isn't good. But if we retroactively apply our $0 accident policy, that drops to 109%, which makes it in the workable category. Our number of passenger claims per 100,000 service miles is 70%, which is good. Modern streetcar update, just real quick, is the most significant thing, and it's very, very important. We've been working on it for a long time, but we issued our RFP, and it was a very, very good RFP in terms of being clear and warmly received by the potential bidders. We held a pre-bid meeting, and every bidder in the world who is in this market niche was there, and a couple international companies and a couple of bidders who are trying to enter the market. Just recently, last week, we received questions from these bidders, which is a really good indicator of how interested everyone is, and we received 38 very good pointed questions. And words from my contacts in Dallas and other places are that the potential bidders were very impressed with our pre-bid meeting, with our RFP, and they're deeply interested in partnering with the City of Oklahoma City, which is huge. By the way, the responses to these bids are due in the end of August, but we're on track, and that's just such a significant, important part to getting the streetcar off the ground, is to be able to garner the interest of these very responsible, multi-billion-dollar companies that are coming to Oklahoma City for just a few $1 million a year. With that, I'd be glad to answer questions or provide additional information.
Good. Any questions?
I have one. Would you mind just briefly the concerns we heard at the very beginning from the citizen who spoke? Would you mind just kind of speaking to some of the, like, what should we be concerned with right now? How on track are we? Just to, kind of address what we heard earlier.
With regards to the streetcar?
Yes, please.
Oh, absolutely. And I know these things too, by the way. I've got a lot of experience in these areas, not in streetcar, but in this RFP process, years and years and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, with just about every city you can imagine. Number one, we've got a good plan as far as the streetcars go, and we just decided where it is that we're going to store them, because they'll be the first time that people are getting or companies getting their streetcars ahead of in time for the opening.
Chairman, since the RFP's on the street, we probably shouldn't talk about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Marcia.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I think
Thus concludes my discussion of the...
The RFP's on the street, and all the questions should come to a central point and then be distributed. So with us making extra comments, it would not help the process. Does that explain?
Yeah. Way to go.
No. I think I only asked the question just to make sure that people know that we are aware of other cities' concerns, and that we are using other cities as models and templates, and that we are open to concerns, we're open to criticism, and we're doing what we can to move forward in the most intelligent way and thoughtful, cautious.
Well, my hat is off to Detroit and to Kansas City and to Cincinnati and Dallas, who's presently learning things that we are going to gain from. And we're very close to that. And frankly, the people that we've discussed are going to incorporate all of the pain that they have suffered to our benefit.
And we are keeping track of those issues that the other cities have addressed and are addressing.
Thank you, Marcia.
All right. Thank you.
I don't mind saying, if I could, I'd bid on this RFP. It's so good.
Okay. All right, thank you. Long-range plan?
Well, just like Kevin, I'm anxious to tell you about a few things. I'll be pretty brief. In terms of the long-range plan update, in July, we continue to work with ACOG to help them basically on the phasing for the 2040 plan of rail and BRT types of improvements, because they're getting closer and closer to being done with the 2040 regional plan for streets, highways, and transit. Also, we've also continued planning future capital improvements for some potential future GO bond issue. But today, what I really want to talk about is what's been going on in July to get ready for some transit-oriented development workshops this month. TOD, transit-oriented development. As you probably recall, Smart Growth America selected Oklahoma City to do some workshops in. They bring in their national experts. And real estate and land use have so much to do with driving ridership and the success of a system. And so whether it's streetcar or bus rapid transit, the way that you have a mixture of uses and a little bit higher intensity of use around transit stops helps to make transit successful. So please, on the board and folks who might be watching this on TV, mark your calendars for Tuesday, August 30th. Because on Tuesday, August 30th at 6:30 p.m., we'll be having a workshop for the general public at 50 Penn Place. 50 Penn Place over there at, just south of Northwest Expressway, east of Pennsylvania Avenue. And on the third floor, they have a community room there. And what's going to happen at that meeting is we'll have these national experts come, present about transit-oriented development and some other topics. And then after probably about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, we're going to let the community break up at different tables where they can talk about different locations. I think the next slide kind of gives you a little sense of that, because the TOD workshops really are to kind of help us all see how transit might look around, say, bus rapid transit stops, including the Santa Fe station downtown. Downtown pretty TOD oriented already, but there probably are some ways to make the general area around there even more so, but also looking at other locations. And these locations on here really wouldn't be the only places where some future high-capacity transit might stop. They just happen to be the locations that we all studied last summer. Last October, you all heard a presentation from the Institute for Quality Communities and staff and others about that. And you'll notice that really the dot for Penn Square Mall and 50 Penn, not on there, and really that was kind of intentional. But that makes a great place out in the community for community leaders and business leaders to come after work and see that. The next two slides just give you a very, very, maybe the most simple, basic sense of transit-oriented development. Generally, let's say 4 stories or so, could be a variety of architectural styles, and the buildings are usually closer to the street, and perhaps the first floor level is things like stores, offices, and the like, and upstairs might be residences, or maybe a part of the building is offices. And again, close to the street and interesting architecture. The next one is kind of another example. You can even see the bus shelter there behind the hedges in the lower left part of the picture. But the same general thing, development that's maybe a little bit taller, but yet still very attractive. In this case, that's a Whole Foods grocery that's on the corner. I think this example is from Minnesota. And so the store sort of wraps behind those types of streets, those types of shops that are along the street, but you have a lot of different folks who live in units of different sizes upstairs. So there's a lot of ways of looking at TOD, but this gives you just a little sense of it. A lot of times it works well near existing hospitals and existing shopping areas, but by mixed-use development, you usually try to mix in a little bit of this higher intensity type of use. So really, in conclusion, we hope that you all will come out at 6:30 on Tuesday, August 30th, and we really hope the general public wants to come, learn more, and participate. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Our parking system report.
Good morning again. In comparing July 2015 to July 2016, I regretfully inform you that we're down 525 monthly parkers in our system. while I'm asked every couple of weeks if we can handle more monthly parkers in our system, and I actively calculate those numbers and report back to those groups, yes, we can. Here's the quantities. I've yet to have somebody procure passes. I'm excluding small groups. I'm referring to larger groups of parkers. Would like to report that total operating revenue for July 2015 was $789,000, while in June 16, it was $589,000 plus dollars. So month to month, we are down a bit. One thing that's not reflected on this report is we gave a credit of $1,257,000 to one of our tenants for flooding, some damage to property, and we're working to fix that roof problem. Bit of an update for elevators. I believe everybody's aware of the elevator that's out at the Arts District garage that's been out for an extended period of time. We determined that the subcontractor, the elevator company that installed the elevators at the Arts District garage, did not follow the architect's specification in wiring that system. We have conduit that comes from a warm environment into a cooled environment, the elevator room. Just like a soda pop on a hot day outside, condensation built up into that conduit and dripped onto the elevator's drive, which is, don't think of it as a car engine, but think of it more along the lines of a drive for your computer, an electronic device. We've engaged Flintco, the original contractor for the garage, and they're working with the elevator manufacturer, one, to fix all of those deficiencies with the conduit, and two, get that drive fixed. But there's a little bit of a disagreement right now. Santa Fe Garage, pleased to inform you that over the months of June and July, we had 4 temporary outages of a single elevator at a time. That's natural. People with their baggage can knock an elevator door or whatnot. All 4 of those outages were less than a few hours, and the system was brought back up. Again, just single incidences where an elevator went. As of today, we're on a 17-day stretch of 0 elevator outages system-wide. That is my report for the month.
Corey, can you clarify the credit amount for the tenant at Santa Fe is just under $1,300, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Just under $1,300.
All right, thank you. Our marketing, Michael.
Just wanted to share a few photos with you. Just a reminder that we went tobacco-free starting August 1st. That is well underway and has been followed up with a health fair on July 14th. What we saw, several people stopped by, many stopped by, and several stopped at the 1-800-QUIT-NOW table, which is the Oklahoma helpline, to sign up to receive assistance in abandoning the habit, and also to receive support. We actually heard of many stories where people had already began their QUIT program because we had given them so much advance notice. So those are all really beneficial things. We had staff visit with neighboring entities around us to ensure that they were aware of our new policy and how it could impact their area, and encourage them to also establish a policy for their organization and their business, and provided also contact information to TSET and the Oklahoma helpline to help them provide assistance with their business making policies. We also have our next third Friday free. That'll be August 19th. Encourage you to spread that word and make sure people are aware. For those who normally drive everywhere they go, to give it a shot that day, use it to get to lunch, or do something a little fun or out of the ordinary. So we'd like to ask people to when was the last time you did something new or unexpected? So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have. All right, thank you.
Any questions? Thank you. All right, Jeannie, our river cruises?
Yes, please report, we are having record ridership this year. We're very happy about that.
Cool.
Our cocktail cruises, month of August is disco, so get your froze out. And then in month of September, it'll be Margaritaville, so you'll need your blow-up parrot. So be sure to get those items. For Sunset Cruises, we are completely sold out for August, and for September, September 30th is the only date that's left open, and it's 50% sold through, so there's just 18 seats left for Sunset Cruises to end the season. And then we will begin our Haunt the River activities. And Spokies. Josh is here today. Josh started at 6 a.m. Monday morning, taking down the old stations. His goal was to have them all out by yesterday. He got them all down by Wednesday. I'd like to acknowledge Trollin Schnebley in the Cotpa maintenance facility, who assisted with some special tools to get some of those bolts out of the ground and get the stations picked up and carried off. Beginning Monday, new stations will be installed. These are the B-cycle stations, and that should be complete by Friday. Our launch event, we're working with Myriad Botanical Gardens on a possibility of having our launch event during their full moon bike ride, when we'll have a pretty significant size audience for that launch. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You don't have pictures of the new stations?
They're not here yet.
Oh, they're not here. Okay.
Actually, they're in Oklahoma City, but they're in storage with the trucking company, so I haven't even seen them yet.
Any questions? Thank you. Do I hear a motion to receive our program reports?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? All right. Any items from the trustees? Okay.
I just wanted to, he's already gone, but I wanted to thank Bob Hammock and Lynn Harden for coming up and talking to us about that. It's a conversation we've been having for probably, a year and a half now. And we've asked them to come up. They came up, and hopefully we can figure out a solution that makes sense for everybody on this.
Really really never got to the point of all the passes for seniors. I mean, it was a lot, but, that's, I guess, what we'll get back next month in a proposal.
We'll reach out and to the school board, our staff, and work up some options for trustees to consider.
Okay. Any other concerns or issues by the trustees? Well, thank you. We got through the meeting a little quicker than I thought, but I appreciate everybody. Thank you.